This is Blue July, and you're listening to the Be Someone podcast. Lights looking bright, the H got the vibe. See my name on the signs, it's my time to shine. When I was cruising 45, and it crossed my mind that I shine like the sun and that I'll be someone.
All right, hey, welcome everyone to the Be Someone podcast. This is your host, Coach Chris Ortiz, and today we are joined by Kathryn Wainscott, but I've always known you as Kat Killian, called you Spider Monkey back in the day when you were winning district championships and running up and down the court and just D'ing everybody up. Thank you, for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be talking to you. And I feel like, I know I said this earlier, but you haven't changed a bit.
Oh my God.
And it's really good what you're doing, and I'm just so thankful for what you do for this community and for the school and for all these kids. Like, I'm watching you do all this stuff, and it's really awesome.
Man, I appreciate you. Usually it's like me, gassing somebody up, and you're over here gassing me up. And what I wanted to do first, too, and you kind of beat me to the punches, I just wanted to let you know, from a coach, someone that, saw you at 13 and 14, how incredibly proud I am of you. You've chosen a very noble profession. You choose to help people. You choose to help our teens. And as someone that still works, right, with this age group, oh, my God, these poor kids, they're struggling right now. They're struggling right now. Even the ones that look like they've got it all together, sometimes they're the ones that are struggling the most. Right.
That's so true. And I do work with a lot of teens. I work with 15 and up, and they really are struggling. They really are. I see a lot of kiddos that really, they want to latch on to the newest trend of self-harm. They want to latch on to the identity of a diagnosis. They want to exchange trauma responses and trauma bonds as a way to connect. And it's just not the way.
Right. And they're finding people to connect with, right? Because it seems to me like the incidences are rising. The amount of paperwork that I'm getting on my desk every day is rising. So I think that, they are able to connect with people, because there's a lot of people with this shared experience of having a rough go at it right now. I'm going to rewind it back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to take you back to your roots.
Oh, Lord.
Right. Did you know, back when we were coaching you in basketball and track, did you know, this was kind of like the line of work that you wanted to get into? Were you sitting there, analyzing me and Coach Moore?
God, I hope not. No, that's such a good question. So I've always been a people person. You know this, you trained me. But it actually started at Knox Junior High, and I believe I was in the 8th grade, and I was instructed to do a aptitude test. It was something for 8th graders to do. It was to help us get ready for the 4-year plan that we were going to create at Knox for high school. And so I'm sitting at this computer, I'm in the library, and I don't remember anything about the test other than the results of, you're going to do something in the medical field. I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty good. That sounds noble. That sounds legit, and it's going to be a fruitful experience, And so I just remember that was the life that sounded great. And I was good at science. I loved science. So my 4-year plan went along with choosing classes like Principles of Health Science 1 and 2, Medical Terminology, Anatomy, Physiology, got to shadow doctors and surgeons and nurses in the Principles of Health Science 2 class. So it kind of laid out this beginning of, you're going to help people. You just don't know what that's going to look like yet.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then we graduate from high school, go to College Station for a year, and got out of that real quick. Sorry. I love all my Aggies, but no, that was not the journey for me. And then I transferred to the University of Oklahoma.
Boomer Sooner.
That's what I'm talking about. Boomer Sooner. And graduated from undergrad with a Bachelor's of Science in 2017 with not a clue about what I was going to do for the rest of my life, which happens to so many college students. I see a ton of college students too, and they come out of college and they're like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm like, that's totally great.
You're still so young. Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to have,
Right.
your future already planned out for the next like 60, 70 years?
Right. And it's such a pressure, I feel like, on a lot of these teens and a lot of these young adults that you're supposed to have it all together. You're supposed to have it figured out. You're supposed to know what you want to do, what your 5-year plan is. And the reality is you don't have to know. You can kind of take a step back and you can discover yourself and discover what you're naturally good at and put that into a career, which is kind of what I did.
Do you think we're stressing our kids out by having them, do all these plans, or do the ends justify the means? Like, does it end up pointing them in the correct direction?
I think it depends on the kid. I think it really depends on the kid, because I'll get kids that are really gung-ho about it, and they're like, I want to do this, that, and the other, and we figure out, oh, you're really good at this. This is your strength, and these are your vulnerabilities. And then I get kids that are like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, that's okay. Let's just pump the brakes. Let's take a step back and we'll figure it out. I think it can be used as a tool, but so often we get fixated on, this is where I have to end up.
Yeah.
The accreditations, the credibility that you've got to have this kind of status or this kind of standard in order to play a role or have some kind of value.
Right. Be successful.
Like what does that mean, be successful, right? So I struggled with that. I got out of college, I got out of undergrad, and I got a great degree from OU. It's a great school, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I moved back down to the Woodlands. I moved back here. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, is still in Oklahoma. He's wrapping up law school. And so all I've done is medical stuff. So in college, I did internships at Texas Children's with Dr. Roosevelt Alcorn. I did a rotation with Texas Children's Emergency Hospital with Dr. Joseph Allen. I did a rotation with Hometown Pediatrics under Dr. Christy Chandler. So all I knew was like going into the medical field, not necessarily healthcare, which is what I am now. And so I come back here, no idea, take some time, take some space, and I look at my parents and I'm like, I'm going back to Oklahoma. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going back to Oklahoma. And so my now mother-in-law, she kind of helped me, and she was like, why don't you try nursing? And so she kind of like helped me out with that. And then my best friend, Kylie, she's a nurse. She's actually on track to be a nurse practitioner. And so I was like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like that's something I could probably do. So this is January of 2018. And I go in and I start doing prerequisites, and I'm standing in my anatomy and physiology, or my gross anatomy class. I'm standing in my lab. I'm standing over my cadaver, and I'm like, this is not, first of all, if you know the smell of formaldehyde, like it's just not a good smell at 8:00 in the morning. And then
I'm just trying to picture you over a dead body.
Yeah, it was
contemplating your future.
Right. And I'm like standing over this dead body, and I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I can't move forward with this plan. Like there was something about it that it wasn't going to feel complete. Like so this is an outpatient practice. So I work in an outpatient setting, and we'll get to that later. But, I just knew that I wanted to help people feel better. And I didn't like the idea of standing over a body and them not feeling better.
Yeah.
So dropped out. Had a quarter life crisis and cried a lot, ate a lot of ice cream, and talked to my husband, my now husband. I said, Cody, like, what do I do? And he kind of gave me an idea. He was like, when I was going through a similar situation, he's a little bit older than me. He said, I got onto OU's website and I just went through their grad school catalog to see what they had. And I said, all right, I'll try that. So I'm watching TV in my apartment in Oklahoma City, and I'm scrolling through the OU course catalog courses, and I see Masters of Clinical and Mental Health Counseling. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So I'm like reading over it. I'm like, I like to talk to people. I'm empathetic. Like, I could totally do this. So I apply, get everything done, and next thing I know, I'm sitting in class with Dr. Allen and psychotherapy, psychotherapy, and it changed my entire life.
Did it feel like it was a perfect fit upon getting in? You're like, okay,
It did.
now I know
It
what I'm
did.
supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it really it kind of solidified that a little bit. I was a really bad test taker in undergrad, and I wasn't really the greatest test taker in grade school. And so in grad school, you're mainly writing papers and you're learning a lot about what other people have studied. And I loved what all these people had studied. I loved learning about the mind and how the mind works and all of the theories and the modalities that came from all of these different people. And it was a different way of helping others that I had never thought about before. And so I go through grad school and I get to the end of grad school, and just like any grad school, you got to go through a practicum. So that meant for our program, you got to pick a clinical site where you practice as a graduate intern.
Yeah.
So at the time, I knew my now husband and I were going to move back down here. So I did my internship in the state of Texas at a behavioral hospital in Cypress, Texas. And that's where I really felt concerned, like this was not the path for me. Because if you've ever been to a behavioral health hospital, it's a little intense.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's a little.
I can imagine. What are some of the things that you saw? Without saying
Yeah,
too much.
yeah. So I was in the area of adults. So they separate it with females and males, and they separate it by age. So I was in the wing of female adults. So I watched females urinate and defecate on themselves and kind of spread it on the wall. I saw a person jump up against the wall and break their nose because they thought they were Spider-Man. I mean, it was a really intense situation for me. And so I would, on my way home, I would call my friend or I would call Cody and I would be like, do we think I'm schizophrenic? Because I'm such an empathic person that I would take in all of this stuff.
You're absorbing those feelings, those thoughts, that energy, and it's coming home with you.
Right, exactly. So it was so hard for me to just not step out of that role. And it was even more difficult for me because I was in the same spot that I was when I was standing over that cadaver and not being able to help those people. Because those people need more care than a therapist can do. They need medication, that's why they're there. They're there to get round-the-clock medication, checkups. They're there to get round-the-clock therapy, one-on-one group therapy. That's what they're there for.
What are some of the elements that would land somebody in a situation like that?
So most of the time, you're going to get people that are in those facilities that are acting imminently on suicidal or homicidal action, intent, and they have means. And those facilities are there to keep that individual safe. Or other people around them safe. So there's a reason they're there. How you get there is either you get checked in there. Like if you go to the emergency room, that's most of the time what people do. Like if they're having suicidal ideations, they'll go to like a Memorial Hermann, they'll go to a St. Luke's, they'll go to a Methodist, and they'll say like, this is what's going on, this is what I'm feeling. Most of the time, if the doctor on staff at that point says, we got to figure something out, they'll put you on a 5150, which means you're being put on a psych hold until they can transfer you to a behavioral hospital, which is completely and utterly dedicated to behavioral health. So that's what's going to land you in a behavioral health hospital. And it's for safety purposes, right? Like I said.
Yeah, for all parties involved.
Right, exactly. So in those settings, you're going to get some pretty intense stuff. You're going to get withdrawals from substance abuse. You're going to get some schizophrenia. You're going to get some major depression. You're going to get across the board all kinds of diagnoses. And you're pretty much there for either a couple of days or a couple of weeks maximum. And then you come down and you go to either an intensive outpatient program, or you go to a partial hospitalization program. Actually, you'll reverse that. You'll go to a partial hospitalization program or an intensive outpatient program, or you go to an outpatient program. Most of the time, you're going to go to one of the first two. And it's just to step you down to reintroduce you back into civilization, knowing that you're not going to harm yourself or somebody else, and just getting the proper care that you need. It's there to help. It's there as a tool. But
it's a gradual, like you said, release back into our natural habitats.
Right. That's exactly right. So when I was there, I felt helpless. Like I ran like group therapy and I did one-on-one individual therapy, and it wasn't doing anything. I would sit there, and everything that I had learned in grad school could not have prepared me, and I don't think it could prepare anybody for that experience. And so I get out of my practicum, and I'm thinking to myself, all I know is the hospital. That's all I've ever done. Like, this is really intense. This is really scary. This is not what I thought this was going to happen. So, and all the while, this is in the middle of COVID, which was a really special time for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So I graduate in December of 2020. I kind of take about a month off to graduate. I got married in January of 2021. And I wait to sit for my boards because they told me you should probably change your name first, so that you sit, whatever name you sit as is going to be your name on your license.
Yeah.
Which, of course, that took forever because COVID.
Yeah.
So that was great. So a lot of battles, a lot of uphill things. So in that time, I said, well, I'm not just going to sit here. Like, I'm going to go get a job. So I'm living in the Woodlands at the time, and I go get a job as a client care coordinator at a outpatient practice off Research Forest. And that kind of solidified, this is the setting you need to be in. You need to be an outpatient. You need to be able to make your own hours. You need to be able to kind of pick your clientele so that you're not working with the certain struggles that people have. Not that I couldn't, but so that I can separate and I can take some time for myself, and I can be the healthiest version of myself to help treat other people the next day, if that makes sense.
Makes all the sense. Like, I think any of us, right? Like, if we could pick our ideal situation, we would, and you were in a unique position to where you were. So I like what you said. Like, it allows you to be the best version of yourself.
Right. And I tell people, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So what that means is if you are not doing well, then what you put out is not going to be your 100%. It's going to be maybe your 90, your 80, your 70. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't get into this to just give you 70% of me. I got in this to give all of my clients 100% of me most of the time, if not all of the time. So while I was studying to take my test, I would work as the client care coordinator. And what that looked like was people would come in, I would be the first person they would see, and I would assess and evaluate kind of the best path of what kind of treatment they needed, whether they needed to have a formal assessment, whether they needed to maybe seek psychiatry or therapy, or what that looked like, and kind of match them with, okay, well, this person does this specialty, maybe you would be a good fit with them, or they would be best to help you. So I did that for about 6 months, took my test, passed. Everything went great, and then started my associate work, and I ended up changing practices to now LifeSpring Behavioral Health, which is where we are today.
Beautiful facility, by the way.
Thank you.
LifeSpring, y'all did good.
We love it. Dr. Johnson did really, really well. He takes care of us. So I changed practices and did my associate work under Christy Ferris, and associate work or supervision is kind of like residency for doctors. So I trained to be fully licensed for about 5 years total. So that includes grad school, practicum, supervision, tests, you name it. That took all about 5.5 years to land me here today as a
All
fully
those letters next to your name, they got to take a little bit of time,
yeah,
Kat.
they do. So my official title is Kathryn Wainscott, Masters of Clinical Mental Health Counseling, licensed professional counselor. So the alphabet soup just means that I'm licensed to help people and through their mental health journey.
Like during that initial period,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you can't mention names. I don't want you to mention
Sure.
names. But like, was there any, individual, any person, any young person, anybody that like really made you say like, I'm in the right business? Like, was there that moment, that spark?
There was. So this was while I was at my old practice. I don't do little bitties anymore. Little bitties are like 10 and younger. When you have a couple of kids pee on your carpet, you're like, all right, we're done with this. But no, I had this one young man. He was on the spectrum, and at the time I was running the group therapy. So while I was in this weird limbo of getting licensed, getting a supervisor, doing all the things, I was trying to stay busy and still being educated and trying to push myself to, what else can we do? What can we do for the community? What can I do here? So this young man was in my group therapy class. And so his parents asked me, hey, he's really clicking with you. Can you do some, can you do some individual work with him? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we started doing that. And this poor kid had some really low self-esteem. He was getting bullied in school, and just it really broke my heart. And then couple weeks go by and his parents telling me that they're moving. I'm like, oh geez, like I've got a great rapport with this kid. Like we're really making some strides. We're identifying strengths. We're identifying vulnerabilities. We're doing all the things, and he's doing really well. And he really loved Harry Potter. And so how I kind of broke it down for him, he was really worried about choosing friends and what that looked like. I said, well, it's kind of like the Sorting Hat. And he was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So before he left, I made him a shield. It was like a paper shield, but like, you've seen Harry Potter,
Yeah.
and they had, Slytherin.
Big fan.
Yeah, right. Slytherin, Gryffindor, all the Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw. So we came up with a name for his house. So we came up with a name, and then before he left, I made him a shield. It was Dolphindale. That was his.
Sounds like it'd actually be in the movie.
Yeah, right.
In the books.
It was really cool. And so I made him this shield called Dolphindale. And so I made him like, one had a dolphin on it, another one had a pencil. There were different like symbols for his house and how he could use that to make friends and what that looked like for him. So that happened, and I was like, this is it. This is home for me. It didn't feel like work.
Yes, that's the sweet spot, Kat. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, it didn't feel like work. It made me feel like joyful. It didn't make me feel like I was getting up like, oh, I gotta go to work. It just made me feel like, man, like I'm doing something. And so that's the story. And so now we're here, and now I have more of a little bit more discernment, a little bit more specialties under my belt. I have more specific clientele that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was really cool.
Well, I've got some questions for you because I'm in education, right? I've been teaching for like 20 years.
Yeah.
I've got some old kids, so I understand what it's like to parent, teenagers and
Sure.
these young adults.
Right.
So I'm going to talk to you, I guess, about like just
Yeah.
problems and what is it that they're actually going through, because the world is a very complicated place right now, especially
Yes, sir.
for teens. Talk to me. Let's start with this, like the phones. Like what's your take on the phones? How can parents navigate this? What would be your suggestion?
Throw them out the window. No, I mean, in all seriousness, like I talk about this a lot with my colleagues. It's such an issue, but we can't get away from it, right?
Correct.
It's been impregnated in our society that we need these things. Like before you walk out the door, you like phone, sunglasses, wallet, keys, right? But what's in that? Phone, right? It's our way to communicate. We have a computer in our hand. And what I see a lot with my young adults, what I see with my teens, and I see with adults as well, what is going to be such a huge problem for us is that craving for instant gratification. If we don't like the video, we scroll. If we need something from the store, Amazon, it'll be here by 2:00.
Right.
Right? That instant gratification. And we get so irritated. We get so frustrated. And we miss life because we're not taking the time to identify, like, man, I'm being present right now. I'm going to be grounded here and be present with all of you and look at you in the eyes and have a conversation. Or most of the time, like, we do this. And this is what we call socialization.
It's like the opposite.
Right. It's the opposite. And so I tell mainly when I tell parents, like, if you can minimize the social media, do it. Like there are two, I know all social media is there for a reason, but if you can get rid of Snapchat and you can get rid of TikTok, get rid of them. Like, really and truly. Because Snapchat, it encourages secrecy.
Go into that.
So I don't have Snapchat. I used to a long time ago, but it encourages secrecy. So I'll get teens in here and they'll say, I was texting this guy, I was texting this girl. And I'm thinking, like, a text message, like, you go to your phone, you hit the app that's not what they're talking about. Like we do, like grown-ups, right? And that's not what they're talking about. They're saying Snapchat, and like, oh, their favorites person went away, and I'm like, this is what you're fixated on? This is what we're talking about right now? And they'll talk about how, oh, well, he or she hid this from me, or they weren't being completely honest, they weren't being completely transparent, they're not being authentic with me in this application. I'm like, yeah, because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to go away. It's designed to like, there's a reason, there's a tool for it, I'm sure. Haven't found one yet, but that
maybe the reason is just like to line the pockets, right, of the people that are creating it, and
right.
they're kind of like preying, on that chemical reaction that's
right.
taking place in our brain.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it definitely feeds that into that serotonin and those dopamine. Like, it's so exciting. You get that notification from
what's going on?
crush.
Explain that to me.
Right. So there is science behind what happens in your brain when we get notifications on our phone. And there's stuff coming out all the time about how addicted we are to our phones. In fact, it's even transforming how our bodies actually are. Like, I don't know if, like, you see it a lot, but like, even I have a problem, like the neck, like the back of the neck, like that's starting to be really prominent.
We talked about this in class today.
Did you really?
Because you can see, like, with young people, you've seen like the evolution, or it'd be the opposite of evolution, right? Like the shoulders starting to get extra rounded, the head starting to lean forward, and then the neck almost having like a hunchback, look to it.
That's exactly right. But it just makes you more inward. It makes you more shy. It makes you more just not ready and willing to, hey world, I'm here. What's up?
Right. And to speak to your point, when we are like that, we're not warm, we're not inviting, we're not, it doesn't look like we want to be spoken to. So it almost kind of feeds that vicious cycle of, we're not getting enough authentic communication, because the body language and the posture that we're sending is that of someone that doesn't want to be bothered.
Exactly. But then we get this notification and it's like, oh, wow, I'm being paid attention to by this box, by this thing that feeds me life, that gives me purpose, that does all this stuff for me. I mean, ask anybody. Ask your students tomorrow, what's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
You can ask me.
No, what do you do, Coach? What do you do, Coach?
I look at my phone.
Call you out.
I'm trained.
Yeah, you look at your phone. Like, what I miss, like, I promise you're not going to miss. Like, I would challenge every single person. I said, first thing you do in the morning, don't check your phone. Give it 10 minutes. If you can go 10 minutes, give it 15. If you can go 15, give it 30. If you can go 30, give it an hour. Turn off your alarm, do what you need to do. That's totally fine. But do other things as opposed to feeding that thing. We are dependent upon those phones and what comes out of them. And they need to be used as a tool. not as a dependency and a way of life. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it's not a cigarette, right?
Right,
It's
exactly.
not chocolate.
Right,
It could have those kind of, negative effects though, like
right.
I guess like anything too, right? Like used in moderation is okay.
Yeah.
It's like whenever we have too much of it, even water, if we drink too much water, like you could
You get
kill
waterlogged,
yourself. You can get
right?
waterlogged. You could, like, people have died from these
Right.
water challenges.
I know, exactly. So there everything is I'm so thankful that you said that. Yeah, everything in moderation. Like I'll get like people in here like, "Oh, I read like 5 books." That's exaggeration. Like, I'll read like 5 books a day. I'm like, "Why? Like what are you doing?" like what's wrong? Like what are you doing? It's a balancing act. Like when I bring a client in for the first time and I do an initial evaluation, I say like I have a biopsychosocial assessment, which is a really fancy word that just means I'm asking you questions about your biological history, your psychological history, and your social life and what all that means. And because I want to learn like what makes you tick. Like if you poop 7 times a day, I want to know that. If you changed your birth control recently, I want to know that. If your diet is dumpster fire, I want to know that. If you don't socialize outside of Discord or video games, I want to know that. I mean, I want to know how you function because what I tell all of my clients is that you are the expert on you, not me. I'm the expert on all of the psychoanalysis stuff and the cognitive behavioral therapy and the dialect behavioral therapy and the exposure therapy and all the other modalities out there. But they come in and they're the expert on them and they're teaching me about them so that I can help them be better versions of them. My job is to be obsolete, that they leave my office and hopefully one day they never come back because then I have done my job. I've given them all the tools and they go out into the world and use them.
Right. The day you're out of work is whenever like we're living in
That's
a
a good
really nice
day.
spot.
That's a good day, right?
Yeah, and I want to ask you about this too because this seems to be a problem like in the Woodlands area,
Mm-hmm.
the suicide, epidemic, like, and not even like following through or completing, the beginning, but
attempts, right?
just in general, like the self harm,
Yeah.
and all the different steps that lead in that direction. Like, what's going on in our community?
That's such a good question. It's such a tough question. And I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I do have my suspicions. So, well, we go back to the instant gratification, but a lot of this I feel has a lot to do with hitting the reset button in so many areas and we give up. So, like, for example, if you die in a video game, you start over.
Yes.
It becomes like you hit the reset button, you're done. If you do really, really poorly all the time in class and you wait until at the end of the semester to try and make things up and you go beg your teacher, you hopefully will get, I'm sure you can speak to that more better than I can, but it's like chance after chance after chance after chance instead of doing the preventative work beforehand of what you need to do and being able to communicate and being able to have open communication with your family and your friends about how you feel. And so I'm seeing a lot of these teens that, man, they are really struggling and they don't have answers and they see this thing like, well, this person did it and it kind of helped. It got some attention and now they're doing better, or maybe this is just what needs to happen. And like I said, I don't have a perfect answer, but it seems like this reset button ideation is kind of what is behind the scenes of, oh, it'll be okay. If I just try this, this might make me feel better. And the lack of knowledge behind mental health too. Like that's such a problem. Like why are we not talking about this more? Which is why I'm glad you're here.
Well, I think we should, because it's really easy to identify somebody that has like a cast on their leg.
Right.
You're like, oh, they got a broken leg, they got a broken foot, right? But like you cannot see, what's in between the ears. And I think sometimes we don't take it as serious. I think that it's not seen in the same light. Maybe it's just because of the visual of a cast or something like that, or surgery.
Right. Well, and the thing about the Woodlands is, and I love the Woodlands. I grew up here, right? Like
I love it too. Like I moved here.
Right. It's beautiful, but let's call it what it is. It's a bubble. Like it is a bubble, right? And that's something, that's a stigma that's been around for a long, long time. We have a lot of affluent people in this area. Great, rightfully so. Y'all worked hard, done all the right things, buy these beautiful houses, and I see a lot of parents that will like hand their kid $100. I'm like, bye, see ya. Thanks so much. Have a good one. And I'm like, your kid is trying to tell you something. Like, let's sit and talk. Let's sit and have a conversation. They're trying to tell you how they feel. And I feel like because all these kids live in a nice area, you know, I'm talking like majority state, they live in a nice area, they got nice cars, they have clothes on their back, they got nice food, you know, all these things. The life is just peachy. But what's behind all of that? What do you feel underneath? And that's where I also see a lot of kids struggling, that, you know, with this push and pull of, I should be happy, I have everything I could want, and I want for nothing, but I still feel this way. And then they feel guilty for feeling this way and don't know how to talk about it, because then they're fearful that they're going to come across as ungrateful. And like, no, baby, like, we want you here. We want you to talk to us. We want you to feel better. Like, it's okay if you've got like all of the things in the world, but you're not going to be able to have any of them if you're not here. And they're not going to mean anything if you're not here.
Yeah, my experience is that it's a lot of our high achievers.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
one would think, you know, it's the kid with the dark black trench coat and with his
Right.
hair all over his eyes.
Right. Dark eyeliner, all the, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's our high achievers. It's our kids that, you know, are in multiple, you know, like honors classes, dual credit classes,
Right.
kids that are in multiple sports.
Right.
It's the ones that you'd never know that are battling, you know, the biggest demons.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of some of it's pressure. Like, it's I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and it was about how when I graduated from high school, all I knew is that there were two options. You either went to college or you went to the military. Like, work wasn't a thing. Like,
That was a Killian?
That was that. Well, not in the Killian's house. I mean, no, in the Killian household, you went to college. Like, you were going to college, and like,
Yeah.
that was great. And that's what I knew, and it was wonderful, and it worked out for me, and it worked out for my sister. But as a class, I felt that the majority of people went to college or they went to the military. There wasn't, you go to work, which I find very interesting, and I don't know why that is, but it was just,
Is it a keeping up with the Joneses thing?
maybe, I'm not sure, Coach. I'm really not sure. Maybe so. I think there's a little bit of the keeping up with the Joneses there. Just, you know, I gotta have the newest iPhone, gotta have the newest AirPods, gotta have the newest like Lululemon, you know, shorts or leggings or whatever. And all of these kids like grateful and have all the things, but then I know for me, like, it was a huge culture shock, like stepping out of the Woodlands and
Yep.
going to college and being like, oh snap, like I gotta get it together. I gotta figure it out. But I think there's a really beautiful balance somewhere. We just got to find it.
Balance again, right? Like,
Yeah.
we keep coming back to
We
that.
keep coming back to the balance. And I think the Woodlands is on the far end of the spectrum of being fruitful and being having status, like we talked about in the beginning, and having this is what's going to make you feel valued, and but no one ever talks about what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
No one talks about that. There's a lot of work. And I see that too. I see a lot of people who don't want to do the work.
Sometimes, like, we could do our kids a disservice, right? By like doing so well and not allowing them to struggle.
Right.
That brings me to kind of like to another point, like something that I'm seeing, and this is kind of like a new-ish,
Yeah.
but it's like the helicopter bulldozer parent. Like, I know you work with the kids.
Yeah.
But like, what advice would you have, you know, for parents that are hovering far too much and trying to bully, you know, the coaches, the teachers, and instead of just letting their kids just
Right.
have an authentic experience on their own and either A, pass, or B, fail. But either way, they
Right.
went through it themselves.
It's so funny that you say that. I was just reflecting on so when I was in elementary school, so I had the privilege of my mom, like, she worked, but she was a working mom, like,
Yeah.
as in, like, she worked to be a mom. Like, that's a job in and of itself. So
Yes, it is when done right.
right, absolutely. So when I was in elementary school, she was always involved. I mean, Marlene, she's got a plaque at College Park High School, for goodness sake. You know, she's just killing it, right? And so when I was in elementary school, Good Morning America showed up at the Killian household. And because they were running a segment on involved parents and what that looked like. And for some reason, they chose Haley Elementary. And they ended up flipping the story, and the story was helicopter moms. And my mom, like,
Your mom was the
my
helicopter
mom
mom?
was a helicopter mom.
Oh, that was not a shot at your mom.
No. It's good. It's totally good. No, it did cause a little bit of, actually, to be honest, it caused a lot of anxiety for me. So I remember, like, one of the very first things that my mom did growing up was she checked my grades. And like I told you earlier, like I wasn't a good test taker. So I would sit there and be like, oh my gosh, am I going to get in trouble? Like what's going on? And because there was a certain standard. And it's good to have standards. Like that's
Standards
not
are
a bad,
good.
standards are great. Like let's not take away that we need to have standards in this life. But
Possible standards or something else.
right, exactly. And so that gave me a lot of anxiety because I wanted to do well. I wanted to feel like I was really a really good, not just a good student, but a good ball player and a good musician and all.
Which you were.
Oh, thank you. I tried my best. I think I did pretty okay. So yeah, but anyway, going back to your point, so that's been around for a long time. That was.
It has gotten quite a bit worse though.
Yeah.
Maybe if like your mom was the exception.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's gotten to the point to where it's the rule, but
Yeah.
it's a bit much.
It is.
And I almost feel like we're doing our kids a disservice when we don't allow our kids to learn the lesson that's to be learned, right?
They
Like
gotta
say like
learn.
tardies, right?
Right.
Kid is tardy. Let your kid be tardy. And if he ends up getting, after school detention for 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
let your kid have the after school detention for 2 hours if he's been tardy like 5 times, right? Let him learn the lesson that's to be learned.
Right.
You don't have to swoop in and say, well, my kid was doing this and my kid was doing that. Look, the fact of the matter is that your kid was late.
Right.
And
Period.
there's a lesson to be learned. And school is a safe place to learn some of these lessons. And
Right.
there's kind of like this new push, like where parents do not want to let their kids learn these lessons in this safe place.
Right.
And they almost go through like unscathed and with a unrealistic look at what life is really like.
100%. Absolutely. I see that all the time. And I think I agree with you. Like, so growing up in this area and then leaving and then coming back, it's like, what happened? Like who turned out the lights and turned it back on when I got back? Like what happened? And it's this fear that their kid is not the best. It's their fear that the kid is not the best, right? And of course every parent wants that. Of course every parent wants to have the smartest, the fastest, the strongest kid. Absolutely, that their kid can make no mistake, but we are all human beings and we're going to make mistakes.
It's proof of learning too.
Right, exactly. That is one of the best ways to learn. So like here's a good example. So it depends on the day, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my days end pretty late. So I kind of accommodate my kiddos. They get out of school later. So I'll leave the office either around 6 or 7, sometimes 8 o'clock at night. Not uncommon. But if you're 20 minutes late, that counts as a no-show. So I'll get these teenagers that are learning how to drive and maybe they like went out and got like ice cream with their crush or something, or they were taking too long in the shower or something, whatever. And I have had a couple of them that have been like a couple 20 minutes late, like, oh, Miss Kathryn, like, please don't tell my mom. Like, this is my time. Like, you're not here and I can't push you back because I got someone right after you. Like, this is not going to happen. And then I get a phone call from the parent. Well, like it's just going to be okay. Like, just push it, just push that person back. Like, people run behind all the time.
So they're making excuses also.
Right. And I'm like, I don't run behind. Like, I'm on time. Like, you are in my office and then you're out of my office. And it's this, we've got to be okay to some extent that failure is going to happen. And I say this a lot, that failure isn't failure. It is exactly what you said. It's a lesson. Like, I need to do better in this. I need to take action in this area. We all have room to grow. So let's grow in this area. It's going to be really hard. But that's why it's even more important, because it's going to teach you that, wow, I can do this. Because I'm sure you see this as well. How many kids do you get? They're like, oh, I can't do this, coach.
Oh, it's quite often,
like,
right?
Yeah, like, oh, my brain can't do this, or I can't.
There's a learned helplessness.
Right. It's just helplessness. I'm like, where did you get that? That, like, who put that stop sign there? Who put that brick wall there for you that was like, I can't help myself. I don't know how to help myself. And it drives me crazy. I'm like, you are perfect the way God made you. And he gave you abilities. And of course, there are hills that we all have got to climb, and there are battles that we've got to fight. And there are things that are going to be against us, whether that is mentally or physically, and we work around those. But there is a time to take a step back, and there's also a time to push. And I feel like right now in society, we are pumping the brakes on, we don't need to do this right now. I'm like, but this is the time to grind. This is the time to push forward. This is the time to make moves so that we can build generations of, yes, I can, and let's push, and let's educate, and let's be better, faster, stronger on their own. Because what I'm seeing a lot of is the parents want it for them.
Yes, yes.
The kids don't want it. The kids don't know.
Hey, and I'll say guilty as charged over here too. Like I've had to learn lessons from my first, child that's about to be 22, and then my second child that's 18. Like it's taken, unfortunately, one child to learn that.
Sure.
But you can't force kids to do anything they don't really want to do. Like you
Right.
may throw them out there in a uniform and stuff, and they may go play and stuff, but they're not playing with the full heart.
Right. Exactly. And they have to figure it out. They've got to figure that out. Like, your kid may not be the track star. Maybe they want to draw.
There's nothing wrong with that. Go be the best drawer that
Right.
that you can be.
Right, exactly. I like to, when I do that initial assessment, I break down, the last question is, what are your strengths? And a lot of people give me like bug eyes. I'm like, what does that mean, Miss Kathryn? And I'm like, what do you mean, what does it mean? It means, what are your strengths? Like, what are you good at? Like, if someone were to ask me what my strengths are, I would say I'm nurturing. I would say I've got a drive, sometimes to a fault. And, I understand, like, what my strengths are, but I get a lot of kids that they don't know what their strengths are. But I wonder also, have they had the space to figure out what they are?
No, I think there's a lot of well-intentioned parents
Yes.
that are kind of like pushing their dreams onto their kids. And like I said, I'll
Right.
throw myself under the bus. Like I was
Sure.
guilty of that, early on as a young parent.
Sure.
And it takes some experience and a change of perspective, right?
Yeah.
To understand that, man, I didn't do this right, and
But you
it,
learn, and
yes,
that's exactly the point. Like, you learned what you needed to do for the benefit of your kid. Like, I don't have kids, but I see a lot of kids. I feel like I have 100 of them. So,
they're your kids.
so right, they're my kids, right? So I feel like, to an extent, like, yes, like I would love to come down to the school and like talk to that bully of yours, or talk to the principal, or talk to the assistant principal, or talk to that ex-girlfriend or boyfriend of yours that has really, really hurt you. But how are you going to learn what you need? How are you going to advocate for yourself? And what does that look like? Because, as I keep saying, like, you're the expert on you. So why don't you show me what you need?
Yeah. Something I really want to ask you too is like, could you talk to us about like controlling the controllables, right? Because I think far too often we fixate on things that are not under our control, right? Like other people's responses, what other people are saying about us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be very healthy for like parents and kids to hear it, from someone like yourself. Like, what are the controllables, and what are some good controllables that we need to be focusing on, as
Yeah.
opposed to worrying about what's being said on a group chat or a Snapchat?
Right. Oh gosh, do we got time for that? No. So there's actually a serenity prayer that we use with a lot of
Yes.
people that struggle with addiction, and it's accepting the things that we cannot change, the wisdom or the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the differences. I feel like the wisdom part is the hardest part, because I don't know anybody that's going to tell me that, like, oh, you know what? I really like being out of control. Like, that's a real fun time. I'm like, we need to talk about that first of all. But most of the time you're going to find people that they need to be in control, especially with their kids, and they got to know everything and be in the middle of it. And I can't imagine, like, from a parent, like, seeing their kids struggle. I can't imagine that because I haven't been a parent, but I can imagine it as a therapist, like, seeing kids struggle and like, what, like, man, like, if we just tweak this thing, if we just do this, but I got to take a step back and say, like, I can't control this thing. But controlling the things that you can would be like helping your kid identify, well, what do you think the problem is? Like, where do you feel like you are struggling? And also sticking to your guns when it's like, look, you can't have your phone, or you can't have Snapchat, or you can't have TikTok or Twitter or whatever, Instagram or whatever social media. And having that, man, they're going to struggle with this and they can't see it. So I need to control this, and helping them understand, like, this isn't a punishment. This is a thing that you struggle with. So we need to control that. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, you actually took it in a really cool direction,
Oh,
but
okay.
I really wanted to like you to dive into the importance of like water intake, nutrition, sunlight,
Oh,
because these are all things that I
yes.
think that like we want to look towards medications, right, to be the quick fix.
Mm-hmm.
But like you got to make sure that you're getting outside and that you're exercising and that you're
Oh,
getting
it's
rid of
so
that energy and
important.
that you're getting the vitamin D that comes from being outside. And
One of the leading causes of depression is lack of vitamin D. So you'll get a lot of people, like we're heading into fall, and you get a lot of people that are like really afraid of fall because, or in wintertime, because it's a reclusive time, it's cold, no one wants to go outside, and like you got to get your vitamin D, whether that's through a vitamin, obviously encouraged and prescribed by a doctor, or you go outside.
outside.
Right, go outside. But I see a lot of kids, they do this. They get on their phones, they want to talk to their friends, like totally fine, but go outside, go learn a new sport, go learn this new thing. And nutrition is so important. Kind of like the instant gratification, like we were talking about earlier, like the fast food. Like I like Chick-fil-A with the best of them,
Yeah.
but that's a treat, right? Like that's a treat after a really long day, maybe once a week or maybe even twice a week. I think it was actually something you taught me in basketball. Like,
Really?
yeah, you said something like, make your plate colorful.
Oh
You
man.
said, I know it's
I was
stuck in
dropping dimes like that back then.
Yeah, you were. You said make your plate colorful, and that has stuck with me. And so like I try really hard. Kind of struggled with in college. Tub of ice cream is kind of the go-to. So some late night study
Rocky
sessions.
road right
Right?
here,
That's what
girl.
I'm talking about, right? And so yeah, as I've gotten to be an adult, I'm doing the preventative work now to help my 40-year-old self, 50-year-old self, 60-year-old self. And we get so busy. So like diet and exercise, those things get pushed back.
Yes.
They get pushed on the back burner, and it's things like that need to be at the forefront. Like, I'll ask, it's really interesting. So I'll ask a lot of my young adults that are in college or who have just gotten out of college, like, when's the last time you did a wellness checkup? And they're like, oh gosh, not since I've been in high school, or not since whenever it was required. I'm like, go get your vitamin levels tested. Let's see where you're at. Like, let's get a baseline taken care of. When I'm trying to build routines with people, I'm trying to implement that and kind of give, especially people who have anxiety or depression, I want them to build a routine that's best for them. And also, like, start with brushing your teeth. Like, let's start with it. And they look at me and I'm like, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm not joking. And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, but this is what it takes. When there's a really good book, it's called Make Your Bed.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know the video quite
It's
well.
it's a really good book. And I encourage everybody to read it, because he's totally right. If you implement that one small thing, it brings
Momentum.
it's such a big momentum driver. And I'm not saying you've got to make your bed every day, but you don't look at your phone. Go brush your teeth, or go have that cup of coffee, or go drink that glass of water, or go have some breakfast or whatever, or go for that run. I mean, as I've gotten older, I'll start my day sometimes at 5:30. I'll go to body pump, and then I'll shower, come home and get dressed and go to work for 8 hours. And then I'll go home and make dinner. And I know that kind of sounds boring and mundane, but at the same time, it's beautiful because I'm being healthy. I'm practicing wellness, not just for my mental health, but for my physical health. And it really is aggravating too, because like you were saying, a lot of people want the pill. They want the quick fix. They want a magic pill. I actually have a magic wand. A magic wand. It's just a stick that's got some like fun things in it in my office, and I'll like pull it out when I get questions like, when is my kid gonna get fixed? When are they gonna get
You
better?
pull it out with the parents?
I pull it out with parents. I'm like, man, this doesn't work. Like, I cannot tell. And I pull it. Yeah, I'll pull it out because I'm serious. Like, I can't. This isn't a fix. One of my I work in life transitions, whether that is grief, whether that is career change, whether that is college prep, whether that is grade change, whether that is relationship change, whatever that may look like, life transitions that we're constantly going through. And so you're never going to be like fixed. You're just going to be
We're a
you.
work in progress, right?
Yeah, you're just going to be you going through different transitions of life. And that's such a beautiful thing. So let's sit down, relax, be healthy, and let's enjoy it because we only got one life.
Right. And every season is beautiful, right?
That's exactly right.
Unless we're in Texas and it's summer all year.
Exactly right. And you're sweating bullets. But yeah, we often want the pill. We often want to like, well, what can I do medication wise? What does that look like? And medication is a tool, just like therapy is a tool, just like we get tools in therapy. But what are you doing outside of therapy? Are you using the tools outside of therapy? Are you taking your medication and being healthy? Ozempic, right?
Oh my God, this is the second time that we've heard about Ozempic in the last.
Really? Is that
yes.
right? You know, it's a tool, right? And it's necessary for certain people and certain things because there are people that just really, really struggle, and it's absolutely a necessity until we abuse it, just like everything else that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. Like, well, we're going to circle back and we're going to do, round two, but just one last question. And I want you to speak of the importance and the role of sleep, because I think that that's also like one of the things that I'm seeing with our young people that's contributing to all the other myriad of, things that I'm seeing is there's a lack of sleep. Let us know the importance of sleep, how much, our young people should be getting. And what are the effects of not getting enough sleep?
So there's so many different studies on the importance of sleep, but for a young person, about between 7 to 9 hours of sleep is pretty good. If you're getting more than that, we have a problem. If you're getting less than that, we have a problem. So everything in moderation. But one of the biggest things that you're going to find is the phone. That's going to be, before you go to bed tonight, I'm not perfect. Before I go to bed tonight, I'm going to be sitting on my phone next to my husband and saying, look at all the funny videos of all the dogs I sent to you today, right? Like, that's what I'm
guilty.
Right. That's what I'm going to do because that's what we do as a society. And so, but with teens, as their brains are still developing, which, by the way, your brain does not fully develop as a female until you're 26, as a male until you're 25. So as your brain is still developing, you really need to be conscientious of what you're doing. When you look at your phone, or even if you read a book and or watch TV, you're stimulating your brain. Your brain needs a good 45 minutes to an hour to really wind down and turn off so that you can really fall into that REM sleep and really cycle through and really have a peaceful night's rest to give your brain some time to relax. And if we don't do that, then we are not doing ourselves a disservice, which is then we get up the next day, and then if we keep cycling through that, then we're going to be more tired. We're going to feel older. We're going to look older. And then we're going to be looking for the next quick fix in our 30s. And it just spirals from there. So it's super important to get a good amount of sleep, to find the right positions that make you feel comfortable while you're asleep. A lot of people will say, like, raise your legs in the middle of the night so kind of get some blood flow. I get, don't do this scenario because it obviously does not help with the hump. So try and put the pillow behind your ears and put it under your shoulders. Drink some water before you go to bed. Always start your day and finish your day with water.
Easy, right?
Easy, right? You would think it'd be easy, but if you can put your phone away before you go to sleep, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes, wash your face. I mean, like, listen to music if that's what you need to do, or listen to a podcast, or
Right,
there
like
you
the
go.
Be Someone
The
podcast.
Be Somebody podcast, right? Listen to a podcast, or whatever you need to do. I sleep with a noisemaker, so I sleep with rain on, and I've done that. I'm a pretty anxious person, so I need that kind of in the background, that little extra noise, because sometimes quiet is too quiet. But whatever works for you, as long as you're not stimulating your brain before bed.
Yeah, just making sure, right? You get your 7 to 9, your 7
Right.
to 9, like that's a non-negotiable.
Right.
It's something that we need,
Right.
and it's something that shouldn't be avoided. That shouldn't be the
Right.
thing that we're looking to not do, right? And I think a lot of our young people, I think just in general, in this grind culture that we have,
Grind culture.
that a lot of us are neglecting rest.
Right. Well, and it's very telling too. So especially with our teens, like, you're not going to do your best work at 11, 12 o'clock at night, especially in this area in Conroe ISD. Like, you're getting up to go to school at 5 o'clock or 5:30, or if you're really, really struggling, like, you're going to be up at 6, so you can get to high school by 7 o'clock, right? So you've got to get to bed no later than 10, and like be asleep by 10:30 at the latest, so that you can get up in the next day, because you're on, you are performing, you are being you.
Yeah, and these kids are on all day. They play on a team at school,
Right.
taking multiple upper level courses. They go to
Right.
another team after school, their club team, their private practice, their personal trainer.
Right.
They do their homework. They sneak in the shower. Grab
Right.
a quick, like, they never turn off. And
Right.
it's nuts. I could see it. I've been around long enough to where I can see
Yeah.
like where our downfall and our demise are. It's like the best thing that we do, and it's also the worst thing we do. But
I don't know how I did it.
I don't know how y'all did it either.
I don't know. So I've been out of high school for 10 years now.
Right.
And so a little over 10 years. And I just remember like being involved in so many things, like you're saying, the upper level courses and all the activities and the tutors. And I'm like, how did I have time?
It wasn't
for
healthy,
this?
Kat. It wasn't
No,
healthy.
It wasn't healthy. Because I remember so vividly that I remember, like, you can do it all. Like, we can't. Like, we are limited, and that's okay. Like, can we just sit back for a second and say that that's okay to have limitations? That's so important to recognize and say, like, I'm limited here, and these are my strengths.
Yeah.
And these are my weaknesses. Not that you can't, do your weakness, whatever that means. But, yeah, I don't know how I did it.
I think this is a perfect spot to end, because it gives us a wonderful spot, to start next time that we speak.
Yeah.
I'm going to start back what I said at the beginning. So incredibly proud of you. This is a beautiful practice.
Thank you.
That you're in, you've made everyone incredibly proud.
Thank you so much.
I'd actually like to bring you in to speak to our girls basketball program, about balancing, school life, because I see my athletes sometimes struggle with that. And I think it'd be really nice to have a
Alumni.
lady night
Yeah.
come through and, and talk to the young
love
people,
that.
because you've walked, in their shoes, and you've been very successful.
Thanks,
But
Coach.
you could also go back and let them know, like, man, if I had it over to do again, maybe I would have taken a little bit off over here.
Right.
But I love you. I'm
I love you
so
too.
proud of you. Your parents
Thank
did a
you
wonderful job.
Thank you. They really did. I really appreciate you. And, it wasn't just my parents. It is important to have people, especially grown-ups in your life, and you're one of those people that shape you, and you helped shape me. So I just appreciate you, and all the love to you, and just really thankful, because you helped me be here to give back to the community.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, thank y'all for watching the Be Someone podcast. You got your host, the Coach Chris Ortiz, and Kathryn Wainscott, Killian, Spider Monkey. Y'all take care, have a blessed day, and go out and be that someone.
Lights, camera, session. Use the flow, molasses. Blue the line, my fashion. Future branding glasses. Applause from the masses.
This is the Be Someone podcast.